someone also commented, I should say, they said what is fiscal and what is monetary policy?
Yeah, this is important.
I want to say that really quickly.
Who wants to take that one on?
Yeah, so fiscal policy is when the government that we elect implements a policy, they fund that policy. That's a fiscal policy. So
budgets and spending.
Budgets, yeah. And monetary policy is when central banks control the money supply, really mainly to control inflation. Well, it doesn't really work by controlling interest rates and also to increase lending in the money supply. And monetarism is this is important too, is an ideology pioneered by neoliberalism, by Milton Friedman.
That's true.
Yeah. So the idea is because the idea that the source of all inflation is just simply excess money it doesn't come from Milton Friedman, but it's popularized by Milton Friedman. And the idea for him, which really differentiates him from older liberals, is that a big role of the state via central banks is to control this inflation by increasing interest rates, lowering them when they need more money. This doesn't really work the way they intend it to, or perhaps how they intended to, but that's what I guess the audience would need to know for now.
Is introduced as a rejoinder, as a counterpart, as an opposition to Keynesianism, which uses fiscal policy and government spending to direct and maintain economic growth through business cycles. And monetarism is attractive to neoliberals and to Milton Friedman and to peak financial institutions because while fiscal policy is subject to government deliberation, to electoral outcomes, to bureaucrats within the state apparatus, planning goals, monetary policy is opaque and can be privatized very easily into the peak financial institutions.
And the Fed.
So,
right. So basically, Milton Friedman's monetarist worldview economically was about private institutions like the Federal Reserve, which is quasi-private, and banks taking control of the economy out of the hands of government and keeping it in the hands of private actors, which is how we get the ideas of neoliberalism. And Volcker didn't really disagree much in terms of implementing that. So we get there. So back to quantitative easing, and we're going to get to how this ties to MMT. So we got to the first thing they did was they cut interest rates. The Fed did that. They kept low interest rates after 2008. And quantitative easing, they started buying a lot of bonds, some of them of questionable value, to increase the liquidity of money and circulation of money into the market. And
at the discretion of the banks.
At the discretion of the bank. So what that did is that it caused that money was not money that was going to civilians in society. It was basically, number one, the low interest rates was allowing banks to lend money to other places that had higher interest rates.
At best, it was trickle down.
Right. It was called parity trading. You had parity trading going on. So you would have a bank. America has low interest rates. So I'm going to lend money to an Indian bank with American dollars and get paid back principal and a higher interest rates because India has a higher interest rate. So parity trading was another major boom for all of these companies, these financial services institutions, right? And then they're buying these bonds, which because there's a correlation between buying bonds and liquidity of money, the buying of the bonds starts to increase the flow of capital that goes to the same financial institutions and allows them to do things like stock buybacks, investing in new technology companies like Facebook. And all of this money is causing an increase of growth of wealth, but only at the top for those who are proximate to the financial services.
And part of it, a lot of it is artificial. A lot of it is asset price inflation.
Yes.
Right.
And can I also add something I would definitely add to your point is when they increase interest rates like they did in the Reagan era with Paul Volcker, presumably to reduce inflation. And this didn't actually reduce inflation. Inflation was prolonged in the Reagan era. It didn't lower until much later. But when they really increase interest rates, what does this do? You have bonds.
Causes unemployment.
People, yeah, that too. Just devastates the economy. But what it also does is when you have bonds at high interest rates, people are essentially getting free money. So imagine I'm a rich person. I own a lot of a government bond. I have $1 million in there, and it's a 0% or 0 point something interest rate versus a 15% interest rate, or at the very peak, interest rates were at 20%. Imagine all that. That's basically free money. And where's that money coming from? Is that coming from the taxpayer? No, it's the central bank typing it into a screen, into that person's bank account. So this is partially another function of it's free money for rich people.
I just want to get to the last
point.
Difference.
The difference between high interest and low interest policy environments is that in a high interest policy environment, rich people make money off of their wealth by sitting on it and just collecting interest from the Federal Reserve. In a low interest rate environment, then they make money by borrowing money at very low interest rates and finding something to buy with it, which will appreciate above that interest rate.
So it's rent-seeking
behavior. Get back at a higher interest rate too.
Yeah, it's rent-seeking behavior.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. Hey.
I just want the last thing, Jason.
Hey, wait. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your way out. You can catch the live stream of This Is Revolution every Tuesday through Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and Saturday, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. This is Revolution.